Good morning to all of you out there. Welcome to the program agenda once again. And I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us this morning. And the sun seems to be attempting to peek through the clouds. So hopefully we will have a sunny morning today. I'm still here in Barrio Capitolio, Pasig. Thank you for those of you who have been asking our whereabouts. And thank you for joining us this morning. It's October 13. It's a Thursday, 2022, and we are going to start our day with our daily starter from actor and comedian Michael Jr. And it's very interesting daily starter. I try to be sensitive to what I am allowing to go into my heart, and then it just shows up on stage. It's not a matter of trying to fix the output. It's a matter of being strategic with the input. It's that advice or that observation by actor comedian Michael Jr. is something that we should all keep in mind. It's not what goes out of your mouth, but it's what enters your mind, your ear, your heart that ultimately comes out of your mouth. So kung medyo mainit ang ulo mo, kung galit-galit tayo, ayan, lalabas at lalabas yan sa bibig natin. So that's our daily starter. And before I go into the news, allow me to say hello to the members of the North Star Vintage Car Club, who just elected their new set of officers. Rene Visperas for president, Noli Bautista for vice president, Ronald Dion, secretary, June Macaraeg, assistant secretary, Tony Sin as PRO, Ruben de Guzman as treasurer, and Nelson Lim as auditor. That's the North Star Vintage Car Club in Pangasinan, and they cover up to Ilocos, etc. So congratulations to you guys. Now let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. The headline, Marcos postpones barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan polls. Okay, the barangay and SK polls have been suspended for another year to be conducted on the last Monday of October 2023. So all the current barangay and SK officials get to have one more year in their position. Some are complaining, some want to be set free, some are celebrating. Okay, at the top of the front page, the Heather Palas states BBM shares Senate concern on Pogos. Having said that, it is most likely that Pogo's days are numbered in the Philippines because majority of senators are opposed to the continuation of Pogo or Philippine offshore gaming operations. And now that Malacanang has stated that President Marcos Jr. shares the sentiment of the Senate, well, likely mukhang tapos-tapos na tayo dyan. Okay, the big picture on the front page of the Philippine Star, those men in white dock uniform with rifles and a big sailboat or ship in the background is a photo of the One Ocean Expedition ship Stratsrad Lemkul that arrived in Manila, in Port of Manila yesterday. It is a floating university training students, scientists, and professionals around the world. And it is docked in the Philippines at the moment. The vessel was welcomed by Norwegian Ambassador Christian Halas Lister, and Transport Secretary Jaime Bautista. Okay. Meanwhile, the Office of the Press Secretary yesterday vowed to address the spread of fake news, describing it as a serious matter. We will see it when we will see whether or not this commitment of the OPS will translate into the reduction of fake news, especially now that the NDRRMC social media account was hacked. Ayan po, that's also part of the front page news. The NDRRMC announced yesterday that its official social media account on Facebook has been hacked. So hindi lang po fake news ang pinoproblema ngayon ng gobyerno, pinoproblema na rin that certain offices have had their Facebook account hacked. Okay, now that photo in the middle of the front page, biglang, ewan ko, no? Maging social na tayo eh. We've become so Americanized. It's a photo of pumpkins for Halloween's sold at the mall in Cebu City on Tuesday, o last Tuesday. Ayan po, no? Social na tayo. Pati yung pagbebenta and carving, decoration of pumpkins is now be available or being practiced in the Philippines. So Halloween is at the end of the month, malapit na, so that explains it all. Meanwhile, Office of the President budget with 4.5 billion confidential funds. Okay, the Senate Committee on Finance approved yesterday the proposed 8.96 billion budget of the Office of the President, nearly half of which is allocated for confidential and intelligence fund, which is now being questioned by the minority bloc in the chamber. Anak ng ewan naman, paano nangyari yan? It used to be that confidential intelligence funds and confidential funds was a very small percentage of the budgets of the OP. Ngayon, kalahati daw. Confidential fund, meaning no accounting or very, very limited documentation. Ay, nako po. No wonder the minority is fuming mad. Okay, the Philippines is 102nd and among 161 countries addressing inequalities in the society. So, ayan po, no? And then, DICT telcos need 6 months for SIM card law. Okay, yan po ang problema. Napirmahan ang batas. The law has been signed by the President, passed into law, but it still requires 6 months before it can be fully implemented because of deficiencies, particularly with a uniform ID or identification system in the country. After 7 to 13 years, 90% of 4-piece beneficiaries still poor. Okay, there we go. That is another evidence of how government has failed to undertake better programs than ayuda and dole out. Yan na po, sinabi na sa atin yan. But hopefully, this revelation will spur Congress, Malacanang, to do something about it because we cannot keep throwing money at a problem and not address what the problem is. Okay, last but not the least, that photo of police officers manning one of 4 mobile outposts launched by the National Capital Region Police Office at the Asiana Business Park in Parañaque yesterday. This is a good idea in my mind because we might be able to finally see our police officers in public and instead of sitting in offices in the barangays in air-conditioned offices. Okay. So, ayan. at least kumbaga nakikita na sila, it adds confidence to the public. That's all we have for the news right now of the front page of the Philippine Star. I would like to invite all of you, please go online, read the Philippine Star online, or go to the Kanto and buy yourself a copy of the Philippine Star and read beyond the front page, because there are many stories, particularly local, national, business, and sports that you can benefit from. Okay, now today we are going to have a double header. Ika nga, no? We're going to address two topics. First topic has to do with our state of electricity, power generation, and government regulation. The second has to do with the recent announcements of global financial institutions that the first quarter of 2023 is going to be bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There's going to be a problem with the economies of major countries, and if the major countries are going to have a problem with their economy, paano pa kaya ang Pilipinas? So we will address that. Let's meet our first guest through the video. Roll the Betamax, please.
Attorney Terry Ridon is the convener of the local think tank Infrawatch PH. Before this, he was the chairperson and CEO of the Presidential Commission for the Urban Poor from 2016 to 2017. Ridon was also representative of the Kabataan Party List.
Okay, welcome back, Terry Ridon. Good morning to you, my friend, and thank you for making time for the program, kasi nung inaral ko yung ating state of power, the transactions, the regulations, as I wrote in my column, na nosebleed ako after 40 years. Nothing seems to have changed, Terry. Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
Sorry. Good morning. Okay. Thank you for inviting me. Well, alam po ninyo, kitang-kita talaga yung nosebleed, no? Kasi, syempre, galit na galit talaga yung mga kababayan po natin doon sa walang habas na pagtaas. Hindi lang ng presyo ng kuryente, kundi yung presyo ng lahat po ng mga bilihin sa panahon po ito. So, it is very important for government to be able to intervene and make sure that the least cost of power will be implemented in the next coming months. And I think in your introduction, it is very important that government do so because of the grave economic headwinds that we will be expecting in the coming weeks and in the coming months.
Yeah, okay. Having said that, because, you know, the government always keeps talking about cheap power, cheap electricity, and they keep pointing to the fact that we are now paying lower electricity rates with Meralco, without really saying that mababa ang kuryente ngayon kasi meron lang kumbaga sinusukli ang Meralco sa atin. But in the coming months, I don't think cheap will be a word that will be common as far as electricity is concerned, because of the supply problems on coal, fuel, natural gas, etc., and the problem in Europe with Russia and Ukraine. And ito pa, yung coming winter, ano ang basa mo? Is this notion of cheaper electricity sustainable?
Well, the energy experts have already raised the point that from 2018, 2019, the prices of coal and the prices of basically fuel supply had in fact increased exponentially. And we are seeing, well, at the moment, we had seen a massive price increase because of the OPEC decision to cut oil supplies, no, oil production. So I think the notion of cheap electricity will be a bit difficult to come by in the next coming months, particularly like what you had said, because of the winter season. But obviously, the question to government has always been, given externalities, given external situation, that we are basically beholden to external factors abroad, what will government do? No, and I think that is the challenge to the Department of Energy and the Energy Regulatory Commission on how will it be able to temper rising electricity rates for the benefit of the consumers. No, and I think the very difficult decision by the ERC relating to the San Miguel Meralco joint petition is an arena by which it can prove to the public on how how the public can be assured of the least cost of electricity as mandated by energy laws in the country today.
Yeah, but I wrote an article yesterday regarding that issue where regulators should actually be enablers. Kasi parang ang nakita ko, puro abogado, puro former officials of industry player. I mean, let's put it out in the open. Secretary Lutilla previously worked with or for the Aboitiz Group. But what shocked me was to learn, and I don't even know her name, the current ERC chairperson is a former Aboitiz employee or official as well. Now, is this a matter of concern na parang, hello, ano ito? We're back to the days of Aboitiz being the dominant power supplier again, and then back to the days where we are going to have power barges for power generation, because that seems to be where it's going to go. If our plants are also old and powered by coal and natural gas na hindi naman mabili, di power barges na naman tayo at diesel na naman.
Well, I think that is a legitimate cause of concern, no? If two of the highest energy officials in the country today had in fact represented or had worked for in one of the country's leading energy companies, no? At the moment, it might be premature to say that they are in fact in conflict of interest, but it is something that we will see in the next coming weeks and in the next coming months, particularly on specific instances in which we would see their former employer undertaking in bids for power supply agreements and in other transactions, no, relating to their energy interests in the country. So obviously, we expect these energy officials to, at the very least, inhibit themselves, no, on transactions relating directly to their former employment or to their former engagement, no, and more importantly, even on matters which basically might just be collateral, no, to their previous employment, kasi it would basically leave a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, no? If they are determining policy, they are making decisions that might influence their immediately former employment, no?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a different set of problems. But let's talk about prices and supply, because the reason all of this got my attention last Monday was when I saw a news item on Frontline on TV5, where it was pointed out that we are at yellow alert or red alert. We're not even achieving normal standards, and apparently we are at yellow and red alert because there are no new plants. Most of our power plants are still fossil fuel driven or coal, etc. natural gas, Malampaya, is practically dry according to the opinion writers. And so, ang concern ko kasi, Terry, is, not just lower prices, but actually having electricity. I remember back in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, 90s, when, meron nga isang presidente tinawag the Queen of Darkness, di ba? So what's your reading? How are we going to sustain? The Meralco and San Miguel pointed out that they need a 30 centavo per kilowatt increase to sustain them through the winter months. Kasi sobrang tataas ang fuel. If they're not sustained, they could essentially be unable to maintain their operations or supply.
Well, I think prior to responding to the specific rejection of the joint petition, I think it needs to be stated that if we are looking at sustained economic growth, it is unacceptable that we are looking at red alerts and yellow alerts, because ultimately economic growth is tied to a sufficient power supply,
that was what happened during FBR's time when the economy picked up, but we did not have the power plants or the electric power to drive the economy, and nagpasok na yung mga power barges, di ba?
Yes, and if we are looking at as an example, expanding the BPO sector, expanding our semiconductor sector, all of these things are essentially among the pillars of economic growth in the last few years. It needs to correspondingly have sufficient power supply, and it is something that will not happen if we continue to have red alerts and yellow alerts. But going to the specific rejected joint petition of Meralco and San Miguel, I think the ERC has really been put in a bind, kasi syempre it needs to do a real rethinking of its role as a regulator, kasi I think hindi talaga pwede rito na we will run a regulatory agency like the manner that we are running courts, kasi kumbaga a regulatory agency is essentially different from the Supreme Court, It is dynamic. Ibig sabihin, it needs to respond to day-to-day problems, Pero syempre, we cannot give, for example, San Miguel a free pass here, Kasi syempre, when the PSAs were made a few years back, talagang very confident sila dun sa presyo nila, Hindi ba?
Yeah,
pero
but
dapat they should
back
be
then
able.
things were normal. I think right now, kasi ang sinulat ko nga sa column ko, yung transport asked for ayuda, yung healthcare asked for ayuda. Everybody essentially pointed out this is abnormal times. This is extraordinary times, and we need help. My only concern is if we insist on regulatory enforcement, paano kung biglang magsara naman yung mga kumpanya? They can't, no person in his right mind is going to throw away billions and billions of good money after bad, knowing they might as well be better off just declaring bankruptcy.
Ibig sabihin, parang I think the manner by which the ERC had made its decision, which I think for the public's information is a very split decision at 3-2, is to, sumalubong, doon sa current conditions, na kinakasadlakan natin. And what could have been done here is, okay, sige, we're not gonna give you a free pass, San Miguel. Kumbaga, some penalties will have to be paid, Parang hindi na kayo pwede siguro sumali doon sa ibang mga PSA bids, Pero pag-aralan natin kung ano yung pwede hong magawa, because the real situation today is, and I think that this has already been projected, and this is something that the ERC also acknowledges, is the fact that talagang pag pumasok into emergency procurement, pag pumasok ko, more importantly, to the spot market, talagang malayo yung magiging presyo mula
Mas
doon sa
mataas.
hinihingi po doon sa joint petition. And it is basically something that the ERC will have to make a real hard decision on. Well, in fact, they did, no? Pero I think looking at the price picture in the next couple of weeks and in the next couple of months, talagang kailangan ho talaga nilang pag-aralan. And in fact, ayan na ho yung panawagan natin sa ERC ngayon. If in the event that Meralco will be getting emergency supplies or going to the spot market, the ERC and the Energy Department have to make sure that the price proposals by whoever it is, whether by San Miguel, by Aboitiz, will not be higher than the rejected price proposal by the ERC. Kasi, paano naman mangyayari ho yun? Hindi ho ba? Na pinutol ho, rineject ho yung ERC petition, pero papayagan ho natin yung mas mataas po na presyo nung iba pang mga supplier or kung sino man hong gustong magbigay doon po sa magiging kawalan po ng supply because of a future terminated contract, no?
Isn't it possible, because my position was in my column, instead of being just mere regulators, be enablers. Now, pursuing that line of thinking, okay, San Miguel and Meralco are asking for a 30 centavo hike just in the next 6 months, yung winter months. Kasi talagang doon tayo madidiskarel dahil everyone will be grabbing for fuel. And already I wrote that in Germany, they have serious concerns. Now, isn't it possible na, sige, bigay namin sa inyo yung request nyo pagtaas for 30 centavos for the next 6 months, pero after this, the succeeding 6 months, payback naman kayo. Parang kumbaga we let you do it now but later sige payback kayo ng konti-konti para hindi rin kayo malubog or magkalugi-lugi.
Yeah, pwede yun. In fact, sa totoo lang and to be very frank about it, hindi ho korte ang ERC. So ibig sabihin, it should be able to be dynamic. It should be able to respond to actual realities in the ground, no? Kaya ho siya regulatory agency at hindi ho siya korte, no? Pwede ho yun. Pwede ho nila pag-aralan yun. And yan nga ho.
And meron naman yatang basis. You just mentioned that 2 out of the 5 members of the board had a dissenting opinion. So clearly, they must have agreed with the petition of Meralco and San Miguel.
At tama po yun. Pero I think yung kailangan hong maipakita din talaga ng ERC sa publiko talaga, yung pushback din doon sa, yun na nga, pumasok kayo sa kontrata ng a few years back eh. Tapos ngayon, bigla kayo, at least kailangan hong, we have to be able to price it as well, no? Into the proposal, no? Kasi syempre, hindi naman ho pwedeng payag kasi ang sinasabi ho na ERC, to be fair to them, no, we have to be able to uphold price commitments, no? We have to be able to uphold the sanctity of contracts, no? Pero
I think we all agree on that, Terry. But the question is, I'm reminded, ikaw yung mas bata at saka ikaw yung economist yata dito sa usapan na to. When was the 1990s financial crisis? 98 ba yun?
98, 97.
97, 98, di ba? Who would have imagined that the dollar would double overnight? So people basically went bankrupt. In the 70s, I saw that myself. We were lining up for 15 liters with ration cards. Now, my fear is instead of talking about it, we might get to a point na, sige, di wala kaming magagawa. And then one morning, biglang red alert kasi hindi masupply lahat, etc.
Well, alam po ninyo, ano talaga yan? And I'd like to be able to state that this is not just a problem by the Energy Department. This is not a problem by the Energy Regulatory Commission. It is ultimately going to the doorstep of the President, no? Because if we are talking about massive price increases in the next couple of months, no, in the next couple of weeks, particularly going into the Christmas season, it will be the President that will have to go back to the public and explain why is this situation that the country, well, Metro Manila, will be finding itself in. But I think, to be very frank as well, it is not just in Metro Manila, it is not just within the Meralco franchise area that we are talking about very high electricity rates, no? Even far-flung provinces, in fact, Eastern Samar, one of the poorest provinces in the country, are facing massive electricity rates, no? And yun na nga, if the president will not speak on this, yung problema ko, baka kasi syempre wala pa hong policy clarity talaga eh. From the level of the president to basically make prices cheaper, yung pong mga kaibigan ho natin sa energy department at sa ERC, parang ayaw ho nilang to second guess, no? The policy direction of the president, particularly because of real relationships among people within the energy sector, no? So I think it is also a challenge today to the president to be able to establish the policy direction relating to higher electricity prices in the coming weeks and in the coming months.
Okay, no, Terry, you've talked about regulatory functions of the ERC and your friends in the DOE, but what about modern technology? Because parang when I was reading all of the reports online, etc., it turns out that our power plants are the same power plants from what, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. And sabi ko, anong klaseng sistema ito that Ayala, yes, okay, Ayala, San Miguel, they had some solar, so nakita ko. Pero parang we haven't made the major, the serious shift to renewables. What's on the table as far as this is concerned? Because that seems to be the only relief.
Well, that's correct, no? Sa totoo lang, if you have more renewables today, we won't be finding ourselves in this particular situation that we are basically hostage to fossil fuel driven supply, no? I think in the next couple of years, and to be fair, no, we had seen a massive expansion in renewables led by different actors, no, power actors, and I think it is the situation that we would want to find ourselves in expanding further on in the future, no? Kasi syempre, ultimately, it has always been a question on where the delay has been, no? Is it a delay because of power players, or is it a delay because government has failed to act in a swift manner to basically allow all of the permits to be undertaken? I think it has always been because government has been in a delay. No? Kasi,
would you agree, Terry, na ayaw eh? Kumbaga, tatagalugin ko, no? I mean, in Tagalog, ayaw. They simply don't want it for whatever reason. Because when you look at Australia, when you look at other parts of Europe, there was a time when people were wondering about solar power. And then people started using solar power. Government started promoting solar power. And the catch was, pag nagkabit ka ng solar power, pwede mong ikabit sa grid sa Meralco and mabebenta mo yung kuryente mo sa Meralco. Now, there's so much solar power in homes all over Australia and Europe, and the power companies are saying, or the electric companies are saying, we can't buy any of your excess electricity because in the first place, most of you don't use our power-generated electricity. You have your own, tas binibentahan nyo pa kami, kanino namin ibebenta yon? So, doon, surplus na, abundant na ang kuryente, and they are on rooftops, bahay-bahay, hindi corporations. What is preventing us from doing that here, Terry?
Well, to be fair, no, in the Philippines, syempre, mahal ho talaga magpakabit ng solar panels, no, sa mga bahay.
Kasi tad ang taxes pag i-import.
Una sa lahat, yung pong home ownership, hindi din ho ganun kalapad. So, for example, if you just rent your place, no, or if you just, for example, live in a condo, it might be a bit difficult to place solar panels, no, without having some trouble, no. So ibig sabihin, limited yung home ownership. So yung paglalagay ho ng solar panels, parang hindi ho yun ganun kadali. No? And pangalawa, yung presyo nung pong pagkakabit ng solar panel, I think it will run you at the very least mga 5,000 US to 10,000 US, no? Or 250,000 to 500,000 pesos yung pagkakabit po ng solar panels sa mga kabahayan. So, it's not loose change to many middle-class families that are concerned for the environment, concerned for a climate future.
Yeah, but Terry, sorry
sana-
kasi I championed that personally, and I've always said, kung gusto, magagawa. Kung ayaw, maraming dahilan, di ba? And there, nafi-finance natin yung kotse. Magkano ba yung kotse? 1.2 million, 1.3 million. Solar panel, as you said, 500,000. Once you install it, halos hindi ka na nagbabayad ng kuryente. So yung natipid mo sa kuryente, mapupunta ng bayad sa solar power loan mo. But clearly, you've been in Congress. Wala bang nakakaintindi ng benefits of solar sa Kongreso?
Well, actually, maganda yung binanggit po ninyo kasi syempre, linatag yung general principles no, and renewables. Meron na yan may renewables law. Pero yung how to basically put it into homes, no, and to also create the financial backbone on how to do it, parang wala pang ganon. Kasi kung meron na hong ganon, dapat may nagbebenta na ho talaga ng mga solar power financing, no? Parang wala pa ako masyadong, low interest solar power financing. Mas may nakikita pa akong travel to Europe financing, no? Kesa po doon sa solar paneling financing po natin. So, kailangan nung pag-aralan yan. In fact, baka merong market, no, na pwede hong makita.
So, last question ko na lang, Terry. Ano ang forecast mo? What are we in for this last 2 months? And also for the first quarter, are we going to have a Prince of Darkness?
Well, I certainly hope not, no? Pero I think the challenge now on ERC is this. Given their decision, talagang lock-in na ho sila doon sa price proposal ng rineject ho nilang petition. Pag nakita po ng publiko na mas mataas po yung price proposal sa emergency procurement at sa WESM, ang sisingilin po ron yung ERC po mismo. Ang pinakamasakla po dyan, baka singilin ho mismo yung Pangulo na wala ho siyang gagawin dito po sa bagay po na ito.
Yeah, and for in the meantime, Meralco and San Miguel can take all of that to court and it's going to take 15 to 20 years to settle the matter.
Well, nakita ho natin yan doon sa labanan ho noong 2013, no? Nagkaroon ho ng labanan on different issues, no, pero nito lang ho talaga siya na-resolve. So this will play out, I guess, not just in the next few weeks, baka in the next coming years. Pero what we are most interested in, ano ho yung makakabenepisyo sa publiko in their day-to-day lives, no? Wala ko tayong pakialam doon sa korte, parang dribbling it out for the next 5 years. Ang tanong ho natin, magkano yung presyo ng kuryente pagdating ng Pasko, pagdating po ng susunod na taon.
Okay.
Kung hindi kayang i-assure ng gobyerno po yun, ayusin ho nila yung buhay nila.
Okay. Thank you very much, Terry. Have a good day and as always, very helpful inputs. And sana magkatotoo yung sinasabi nating installment plan para sa kuryente. Okay. Thank you. God bless, Terry.
Maraming salamat, Cito. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now go for a quick break, and when we return, we go over to our economist to tell us all about the coming 2023 nightmare according to global financial institutions. We'll be right back here on Agenda.
The global economy continues to face steep challenges shaped by three powerful forces: the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the cost of living crisis caused by persistent and broadening inflation pressures, and the slowdown in China. Our global growth forecast for this year is unchanged at 3.2%, while our projection for 2023 is lowered to 2.7%. The 2023 slowdown will be broad-based, with countries accounting for a third of the global economy expected to contract this year or next. The three largest economies, the United States, China, and the euro area, will continue to stall. In short, the worst is yet to come, and for many people, 2023 will feel like a recession.
The worst is yet to come. Let's find out from our guest, an accomplished economist, academician, what the worst is yet to come will mean in the Philippine context. Let's watch this intro video.
Emmanuel Leyco is a known economist in the country. He currently serves as president of the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila. Prior to this, Leyco was officer in charge and undersecretary for finance and administration at the Social Welfare Department.
Okay, Professor Leyco, good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, Cito, and thank you for having me back.
Okay, let's go straight to the point. We are concerned about the projections of the IMF. It will feel like we are having a recession in the next coming months and the first quarter of 2023. And to quote, the worst is yet to come. What does that mean in terms of the Philippines?
Well, the scenario that is being described by IMF is nothing really new. We have seen this. When the economy contracts, that means there will be less economic activities. And to us, what we're going to see will be more unemployment, less production going on because people are not buying and people are not able to exercise their purchasing power because it has been weakened. But I think we have to put that in perspective. The economy, the Philippine economy has been, for the most part, we have been dependent on, for example, the remittances coming from abroad and our importations also from abroad. So the question is, what kind of economy do we have in the Philippines? It's really more dependent on external factors, and therefore, if something happens externally, that will definitely affect the Philippines.
Okay, but the question is this. Okay, everyone has said, or many people have said, our dependence on OFW remittances is no longer a viable fallback or is no longer reliable because many of our kababayans who work abroad have met up with stiff competition with workers from other nations, and they are also facing higher prices where they are because they don't exactly live for free. Most of them may, except for domestic helpers, but a lot of the other OFWs still spend money abroad, and so the remittances have been reduced.
Exactly. I think the illusion that we can always depend on external monies has already been debunked. And therefore, the attention should now be focused on what can we do internally so that for the most part, while we cannot really immune ourselves from what is happening in the external world, the Philippine economy should move, should continue. But in the meantime, just for the sake of discussion, when we ask what can the government do, they talk about monetary interventions, but they never talked about fiscal interventions. No?
What do you mean by what's the difference, Professor Leyco?
Okay. Monetary meaning they can raise interest rates.
Okay.
They can release dollars in the market. They can do something about the reserve requirements. No?
Mhm.
But those have, I think that is what IMF was also talking about. The rising interest rates can also have harmful effects. While it may be able to control inflation, it will also make the cost of operations for many companies and cost of household credit very expensive. And therefore, it will hold back people from spending. It will also hold back businesses from investing because the cost of money has become a lot higher. So,
Okay. What about the other form? You were saying monetary or
fiscal
fiscal?
intervention.
Oh,
And I think what is very relevant here is the national budget. You cannot have a national budget as if nothing is happening outside. Our budget in the 5.2 trillion level, I think will have to be scrutinized whether or not the spending of the government for the next year will really give us enough to defend our people.
okay. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time today, Professor Leyco, but can we bring it down a notch lower or several notches lower? Paano na yung mga Pilipino, our viewers? What can the regular Filipino, because government keeps talking, ang layo nung ang layo nung Malacanang, ang layo ng Senado sa buhay namin. What can we do? Should we save as much as we can? Magtipid ba kami? What is the prudent approach we face given this warning?
The prudent way to do right now is, like you said, we have to save. And kung kailangan mangutang, huwag tayong mangungutang ng dolyar. At kung meron tayong utang at meron naman tayong pambayad, bayaran agad.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words,
wag kayong gagamit ng credit card na puro kayo deferred payment, because the interest rates keep going up. The interest rates changes, so it's going to burn a hole in their pockets.
Hindi tayo makakatapos ng pagbabayad kung yung mga minimum lang ang babayaran natin. In fact, mauubusan na rin tayo ng ating credit lines. No? Mauubos yan. Hindi natin nababayaran. So, pumapatong lang ang interest. So,
okay,
sa consumer...
Yeah. Because we're approaching, the holiday season, travel time, etc. Meron ng mga promotion yung mga tour operators. Pero if I were to ask you, would you be inclined to travel between now and March 2023? O wag muna?
Wag ta-travel pero domestic lang. At saka pwedeng imaneho, pwedeng tipid. In other words, yung prudence natin biglang napunta sa household. Pero ang prudence dapat ay mailagay sa pamahalaan. Prudent din dapat ang paggastos ng pamahalaan. And I think for the most part, yung travel, yung tourism, ito yung para sa mga small middle class families natin. Pero yung maraming pamilya na wala naman silang sobra, wala naman silang pwedeng gastusin, maski na bili lang ng pagkain, no? Ito ang mas malaki ang problema, no? Kung hindi sila makasabay sa pamimili, ano ang gagawin nila? Anong gagamitin nila? So ito, I think ang magiging senaryo natin dito, pagkapatuloy ang pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin, gutom ang mararanasan ng mga mamamayan sa baba. No, I think.
But when that happens, merong bite back yan eh, di ba? Kumbaga may karma yan. Yung mga nasa baba hindi na makapamili, isang kahig, isang tuka, as we always say in our generation. But there's a bite back or a pushback to this because it will also affect the supermarkets, the supply chain, etc. So, am I correct in saying this is going to be a vicious circle?
Exactly, and that is what the IMF was talking about. yung contraction, yung recession. This is the scenario in practical terms that we are looking at. Hindi ito illusion, no? Kundi may practical scenario. So if the people cannot buy because of weakened purchasing power, meron ding like what you said, no? Yung bite back na yung mga supermarkets bababa rin ang kanilang mga sales. Yung kanilang retail bababa at yung nagsusupply sa kanila bababa din ang kanilang negosyo. So vicious cycle, no?
Yeah. Would you call me crazy if I said, we should promote plant your own na? Wala na, kanya-kanya na tayo. We should produce our own food, etc. Because I also picked up the other day, our importation has just increased again. Umuutang tayo, tumaas ang utang, tumaas pa ang importation.
Yung pagtatanim ng kailangan mo sa backyard, I think that's the romanticist way of saying, I will rely on my own. Pero marami naman sa atin, wala naman silang sariling lupa. Wala silang pagtataniman, no? So it goes back to what the macroeconomic situations would be like, no?
Yeah.
Pagka dumating na yung panahon na talagang wala na tayong pambili, mataas ang presyo ng mga bilihin, hindi mo kayang, siguro yung iba na merong mga lupa, pwede silang magtanim. Pero for the most part, hindi na kayang magtanim. And you were referring to importation, no?
Yeah.
Pagka natigil ang ating importation, magkakaroon din yan ng epekto sa ating food supply. Dahil marami sa mga kinakain natin ngayon, ng mga inputs are imported. So pagka nawala yan, ang harina, for example, tumaas ang presyo at kung hindi na tayo makapag-import, ay lalong tataas ang presyo ng ating mga tinapay.
What about a massive planting campaign, Professor? Kasi I was just computing in October. So November, December, January, February, March. If the government introduced a massive planting program, would that help or wala rin?
I don't think so. We are a market of consumers, hindi tayo planters, no? And to convert the market into more of suppliers or self-reliant production, parang it will take time. It will have to be a change of strategy, no? And I think that should make sense. Not now, not in the near term, pero siguro in the future. Pero yung sinasabi natin, yung self-reliance natin sa sarili nating agriculture. And it will mean a lot. It will require a lot for the country to reinforce, re-strengthen our agriculture. Kasi humina na talaga eh.
Oh. Yeah, because when you reacted that planting, self-reliance planting is a romanticist view. Parang ang retort ko naman is, you may be right, but am I going to wait for the government to do something? They don't seem to be interested. Are you convinced that the government will actually react positively to what the IMF said? Do you expect that they will do something about it quickly?
I hope so. Dahil it's not just the IMF saying that. It's also the big businesses already saying. It's not just a question of whether or not we are going into a global recession, but it is a question of when it is going to happen. So the IMF is saying, mga first quarter, first half of next year, we will see the global recession.
Last 1 minute, Professor, paki-explain nga kasi marami sa amin di namin naintindihan. Ano ba talaga yung recession? What does a recession feel like, smell like, look like?
Well, ang recession, kung titingnan natin yung ating GDP, ang ibig sabihin yan, magko-contract, babagsak. Kung natatandaan natin ang nangyari during the lockdown, ang GDP natin bumagsak 16.5%. Ang ibig sabihin yan, maraming mga mamamayan ang nawalan ng trabaho, maraming pabrika ang nagsara, marami ang hindi makabayad ng kanilang credit, at marami ang nag-bankrupt. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng recession, no? Nag-contract ang economy, walang produksyon, walang namimili, at wala ring nagbebenta. Kumbaga, yung senaryo nung last quarter ng 2020, mas matindi ang sinasabi ng ating ng IMF at ang mga bankero, no. The last one I heard is the president ng JP Morgan saying na it's not just a question of whether or not it's going to happen, but when. And now with the declaration by the IMF that 2023 is going to look like a
Feel like a
contraction for the
recession.
it will feel like a recession for some, but it will really feel like a recession for many, particularly the developing countries. Ang ibig sabihin yan, kung ano ang nangyari nung lockdown, ganyan ang mararamdaman natin during a recession.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Leyco, for explaining what a recession really will be like. Thank you and have a good day, Professor.
Salamat and mabuhay tayong lahat.
Okay, that's Professor Leyco. And let's now go to our blessing for the week from Psalm 90, verse 17. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. All I can say is let's pray that all of this bad news does not come to pass. And if it does, I pray that we will be covered by the Lord. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.